Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Ask the Alim, the show where you can pose questions to leading religious scholars and thinkers. If you have any questions, you can send them in to us using the hashtag AskTheAlim, or you can send us an email at britishmuslim.tv, so do send them our way. Joining me today in the studios to answer your questions, we have Sheikh Ibrahim Mogra from Leicester, and we also have Reverend David Gerard from Wakefield. Hello, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So our first question for today is, what is the afterlife according to both Islam and Christianity? And Reverend David, I'll give you the honour of starting first.
Okay, well I think to answer the question you slightly need to unpick things. I think in most people's minds, in our culture, the afterlife is to kind of float away somewhere, kind of disembodied evacuation kind of thing to another place. But that's not actually the Christian hope. The Christian hope is much more complete, much more whole. So if you're talking about where are the people I love who have died, then actually the Bible doesn't give much in the way of answer. It just talks about how they are with Christ, they are in God. And so I'm quite happy to use the phrase they're in heaven, if you want to put it that way. That's where they are. I think the idea that heaven's a place with fluffy clouds and angels playing harps and stuff it's got nothing to do with it, but they are with God. However, that is not the ultimate hope of the afterlife. The ultimate hope is that this broken world will be fixed, and then when it is, people will be resurrected. And resurrected is a very specific term, which means that they'll be back in a body. Now, it won't be a body like ours, because it talks about in the Bible how these bodies won't be subject to decay or that kind of thing. We won't age, that kind of thing. And so the ultimate hope is for the whole world to be recreated and for people to be resurrected to live on this new, fixed, perfect world in which heaven and earth have come together. So there's almost two stages to it, where those who die now will be with Christ, but the main emphasis of the Bible is the ultimate hope of renewed and restored creation and people resurrecting to live together with God there.
Sheikh Ibrahim, what about your take on this question?
So the afterlife is, first thing, it's eternal. And the afterlife will take place in a place other than the creation and the universe that we know. So it'll be a fresh start, a totally new place. When we die, our souls are transported into a different realm, into a different world. And when the day of judgment arrives, we will be resurrected, and the soul will be returned into a new body. And it is with that we will either enter heaven or be destined for hell. For Muslims, these are physical places. We don't think about the afterlife in metaphoric terms. We think of it as an actual reality at a fixed time, which God has appointed, and it will happen.
Well, again, it's interesting. There's both overlap and disagreement there, which is bound to happen all the way through, isn't it? We again think of the afterlife as a concrete place, or certainly the new creation as a concrete place, and that's actually what resurrection means. It has no. Certainly in the time when the Bible was written, the word resurrection meant to come back to life again. And so when we talk about the resurrection, that's what we're talking about. But at the same time, it's quite distinct, because if you come back to life only to then grow old and die again, well, that's not the afterlife, it's eternal. And so there's a restoration of all things, all creation, that goes along with that future afterlife. Now again, when we talk about going to heaven and hell, it's again quite different in Christianity, because heaven is the place where God is. That's kind of what heaven is. It's not so much it's not like God could leave heaven. That doesn't make sense. Heaven is to be in the presence of God. And so when God comes to the world, then there is a sense in heaven, which is why you get the Lord's Prayer, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So there's this idea of the God's kingdom coming into our everyday reality. and the future hope is that will be all in all. That God will, again, that's a biblical quote, God will be all in all.
You both mentioned the word eternal, so I'm wondering, time as we know it now, temporality doesn't have any kind of bearing in this afterlife. Is that right?
Well, yes, certainly. I don't. It depends what you mean.
This is something to ask a religious figure, maybe some physician, physicist rather. But I don't know.
I'd see time as is still going on in terms of it's not all one kind of mystical kind of you're always in the now kind of thing. Time will go. You'll do things. Time will happen. But in another sense, of course, it goes on forever. So, do you see what I mean? I think if you're just one thing we're not talking about is this kind of eternal kind of nirvana kind of feeling. It's much more concrete than that, much more kind of real, for want of a better way of putting it, than that. But it will go on through eternity.
Sheikh?
Yeah, I would say similar things, that the way we relate to time in this life is like we see it ticking away and it's gone. In the afterlife, the physics of everything in the afterlife will be very, very different. We can't base it on our reality now. It's a totally different kind of place and creation. So time in relation to something uh, 50,000 years of our counting. Even there, the scholars say that is just to give us an idea of the span of time. Like it's not actually 50,000; it's much more than that. But as human beings, when you think 50,000 years, you think, "Wow, that's a very long time."
Sure, yeah.
So that's the whole idea behind the usage of numbers and figures in regards to this.
What does the afterlife look like? I mean, you've mentioned that it's not, cloudy kind of heaven. What do the scriptures say? What does the afterlife look like?
Well, in Muslim tradition, we have very vivid descriptions, very graphic descriptions, both of heaven and of hell. But having said that, the Messenger Muhammad, peace be on him, said that there are things in heaven which no eye has seen, no ear has heard about, and no heart or mind has even thought of. So you could try your best to describe it, whether it's a fluffy, cloudy, nice place or however else you describe it, it'll still be more than what you can describe. Our minds are limited because we are on this side.
Sure.
We are in the temporary world. And the Quran talks of the pits of hellfire and some of the punishments and some of the things that will happen there, and also the pleasures of heaven. And the hadith collections tell us that the greatest pleasure will be to be in the presence of God. And that's what heaven is really all about.
Yes, exactly. Well, again, in the Christian faith, when it describes the ultimate hope, the ultimate destination, if you like, it actually ends up with there will be no temple because God himself will dwell with his people. So there's a whole idea that basically the whole thing is now a temple. The whole thing is presence of God, and that's the whole point of it. In terms of what will it look like, there are descriptions in the Bible, but all of them are really they're trying to put language to something you can't put language to. And so they are signposts, and that's not to say they're not real, it's just to say that they are, they're a signpost. If you come across a signpost to the zoo, it might have a little picture of an elephant on, but that doesn't really give you any indication of what actual a zoo is like. And in the same way, there's signposts in the Bible to what new creation will be like, but really you've got to go, okay, that's just trying to explain the wonder and the majesty and the awesomeness of it in a way that our human minds can understand. And so we'll talk about, there's golden streets, and there'll be sapphires and all this kind of stuff. But really, I don't think that's giving you a proper map. It's just trying to say to you, it's going to be amazing.
Even then, it sounds like the language in which it's described is just something that we can only comprehend as humans now, at least. Because again, I was talking about time earlier, but I guess whatever the afterlife looks like, it won't be bound by the physical laws that we're bound by on this earth as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. I don't know. That's the trouble. All it does is, I mean, if I was going to summarise the Bible's view of the afterlife for believers, it would just be Jesus turning round and going, just trust me. And that's almost it. That's almost just kind of, trust me, it's going to be great. That's all you need to know, trust me. And so any kind of description of it, you're bound to fall short.
It almost sounds like, I guess it comes back to the principal idea of, at least within Islam, of not being able to see God, at least having a physical form, and then also the same thing extends to our sense of the afterlife. Although we do have graphic descriptions, as you said, but even then we don't fully know even what that would look like, even with those descriptions.
Yeah.
Because it's just something that nobody's ever seen, at least manifesting itself on Earth.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you think you read about rivers of milk and honey and abundant
exactly.
fruit
How
and
can
all
you?
that?
It's difficult to comprehend that.
Well, we don't have much, but we've got images of gates thrown open and rivers flowing and the trees of life blossoming on each side. But I don't think you're ever supposed to go, oh, well, there you go. We know it's going to be a river with trees.
On that note, we're going to have to go for a short break, so we'll see you in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum.